In this video, I will demonstrate using a battery placement jig that I developed. It functions similarly to the tape placement guide that I showed in the previous video. It's this part here, so this green placement block holds the battery. Otherwise, it functions the same as the tape placement guide with the 3 brass posts to guide the board into position. I also have a board here that has double stick tape for the battery installed. And the transmission is installed as well. This jig can accept boards with or without transmissions, though again I think this makes the most sense to do after you've already installed the transmission. And finally, I have a battery in the packaging that they come in from the factory. The first step is to remove the battery from its packaging and to remove the Kapton tape, this gold colored tape, and the heat shrink tubing from the leads. You want to do this carefully. If you damage the battery leads while removing this tape, if something breaks off or you stretch them out, there's no way to salvage the battery. You'll just have to discard that part. So I tend to peel the tape as carefully as I can. So like that. You don't want to use any force. You may want to use a pair of non-conductive tweezers like these to help peel that off if you get a tricky one. You also want to remove this little piece of black heat shrink tubing. That rarely gives any issues. Once the protective material has been taken off the battery, you want to put the battery into the guide here. Notice that there's a little knob. That knob fits into this pocket right here on the battery, so prevents you from installing the battery incorrectly. If I try to put it in there upside down, it doesn't fit flush, so it's crooked. If I were to try to put it in backwards, it wouldn't go in all the way either. So you want to put it in with the leads facing this way and with the printing facing into the guide. So just like that. Next step is to take the protective coating off your double stick tape so that it'll adhere to the battery, and then to guide the board using these 3 brass posts, again using the holes with the black circles around them here for the rivets. So you just line it up, 1, 2, 3, and push down slightly. Again, very little pressure is needed, and lift it up, and notice that it's picked up the battery. What I'm looking for in battery placement is for it to be within the boundary of this black box, and for the battery leads, these little metal parts, to be nicely lined up with the PCB pads for the battery on the board. You don't want them to overlap, so it'll have to line up perfectly, but if, say, this battery terminal was so misaligned that it might contact the opposite one, you could get a short or damage the board if you soldered it that way. So this is a good placement.